Hello everyone and welcome to another Starcraft 2 beta gameplay commentary. This time it is a 1v1 on the map Desert Oasis. It's myself, it's Protoss versus SpamPanda as Terran. Now, this is a rather large map and you have a lot of potential to go air in this map because there's a long distance to get to your enemies. I haven't worked out just how long it is, but I'm sure it's longer than it is on Blistering Sands and that. Right, as you notice here, I brought my Protoss here. After I built my pylon, I send him off to scout. Good thing you want to do is you want to try and harass any SCV that is currently building, because whilst they're building, they're vulnerable. Although it's not so easy to target them. As you can see, he's in the middle, so if you use insert and delete, you might be able to get round to target him. That's what you want to try and do. That's what I usually do, just to put as much harass on that, so it slows down that barracks just a little bit, makes a bit of difference. But as you can see, sometimes he's on the outside building it, other times he goes in the middle. When he's on the outside, you definitely want to target him and try and put him off building it. Right, as we can see, he's going for a refinery. He's got himself a barracks. Because he's got the refinery, you'd have to assume he's getting a tech lab afterwards, or a reactor core, since that requires Thespian gas. He's getting a command center rather early. This means he can bring down mules, or mules rather. There's another mispronunciation. Anyway, Marine here, wailing on my probe. I want to try and kite the probe around if I can, out the Marine's fire, and bring him back out, but unfortunately I did have the feeling that he was going to have another Marine in time, so he did, which means that the probe isn't going to survive. Meanwhile, I feel like having a good scout around his base and a bit of harass. The tech lab's gone down, as you can see, because of the refinery. He's got two refineries. I feel like he's not really going to be putting much pressure on me. Most Terrans do not rush. That is my experience so far, so I usually do a lot of risky strategies. I managed to just catch his SEV, as you saw there. Yeah, so I haven't actually built any Celots or anything. I just built a Cybernex core as soon as the gateway finished. I've got two assimilators. I assume at some point I am actually going to start to put probes in them, which would be nice. There we go. So from this you can assume that I'm not going to be going too heavy on Celots, or mostly tier 1, because two assimilators you don't need that for mass tier 1. So what are you assuming? Well, in my head, in this map, there's a big canyon here, sort of gap, and it's quite easy to access your opponent with air. So that's what I'm going to try and go for here. I'm going to try and get up to air. But in case he does decide to push, which it doesn't look like he is, but I don't know that because I don't have map hack. Don't think anyone does at this stage, thank God. Yeah, I'm just deciding to make Stalkers, just a good little unit to kite any Marines or whatnot, hit and run, just to try and buy myself some time, which is why I'm building them rather than Celots. Even though they cost mineral Thespian gas, I do prefer them in this stage because Celots can be kited pretty damn easily until they've got the speed boost. So if a good player knows what he's doing, he can bring down your Celots rather easily. So the Stalkers is much more threatening to him. He's got a factory here, he's built a Hellion, so you'd assume he's going to want to do some sort of drop runs on me. Because here we see two starports, so that's what I'm going to assume. That's what most Terrans do. It is a very common strategy to get themselves pretty quickly up to starports, build medifacts because they're super units, you can't really go too far wrong with them, whilst making Marines or Hellions, because they cost the they use up the minerals, whilst the medifacts use up a bit of the old Thespian gas, so you can pretty much keep your resources quite even as a Terran if you decide to keep making Marines and all that whilst you're building medifacts. So by the time you've got a fair few medifacts, you can get yourself quite a lot of quite a large army with Marines, and then bring them over to my base and harass. As you can see, I'm starting to build a Stargate. I'm building Phoenixes now, just in case he has started to get medifacts, because I want to make sure that I've got something to try and counter them, because I'm very fearful of him bringing air and dropping into my base in this map. It is a large map. There's expansions here on either side, over here on the right hand side. You've got two little island bits over here, a bit like on Lost Temple, where you can't access it on land, but you can get there by Nidus Canal or air, you know, or transport vehicles, but you can't get there through meaty land units. So there you go. As we can see, Banshees are actually coming out. That is another typical Terran strat, particularly against Protoss, is they all rush to Banshees and then come over here and take out your probes, because basically, even with Stalkers, they're not a very good counter to Banshees. There's something that can hold them off, possibly, but you're kept on your toes the entire time whilst he's got the movement and speed and fluidness of like a using air units, whilst you've got slow ground units, you know, stomping along, not really being very useful at all. So he can keep much better pressure on me if he goes Banshees, and I just kept going Stalkers. I've got quite a lot of them now, so I'm pretty keen that that's about enough. I've actually started to make some sellers because I've got way too many minerals at the moment. So this is the point where I actually decided to get a warp prism. Believe it or not, this is actually the first time I've built a warp prism, and I'll show you what it does. It's an actual transport vehicle. It also serves as a phasing mode. As you may have seen, some abilities, the ability of the gateway is you can transform it into a warp gate using the cybernetics research warp gate, and that allows, as you can see, I'm going for the expansion here because I get a feeling I might be able to get away with this. He's got himself an expansion, but it's in the open bit where I can get to that quite easily, but he certainly cannot get to this easily unless he does have air. As I was saying about the warp prism, I decided to put a few more probes in there, bring it up round here and then back down to this bit, because I thought, well, if I can get one island, why not go for two? I do play very greedy. I am a rather risky player. I really don't like to play safe, as it was. I always like to try risky strategies. I've got my Phoenixes here. Just want to scout his base, see what he's got, see if I can take that. I don't think I can take that. His Vikings, I don't know if they do who wins in a one-on-one between a Phoenix and a Viking, but I'm not willing to find out and give him the advantage. I've got expansions going, so I want to maintain that. So as I was saying about the warp prism, I'll finally get back to it. The phasing mode. Right. What you have is, if you have a warp gate, and you use this and then you click on phasing mode, it takes 2 seconds, and then he creates a sort of pylon effect, a little grid. So you have a little blue grid underneath him, and you can teleport units from the warp gate to where your warp prism is. So you don't just need a pylon to do that. You can use a warp prism, which is a much better portable pylon, but obviously it's a bit more expensive. Twice the price, but for the mobility, and if you can get one, because they're in the robotics facilities, only 200 minerals. It didn't cost any Thespian gas, so I was quite surprised by that. Usually you have a lot of minerals, so it's quite affordable. So if you can put the effort into it, then you should. As you can see, I saw this coming. I saw the Banshees earlier. I scouted it with the Vikings. He wants to basically come round, attack the probes like I was telling you about earlier, but I'm not going to let him do that. So I'm going to use my Phoenixes, put him off a bit. He wanted to try and drag my Phoenixes back, so that way my Stalkers wouldn't be able to use their attacks as well, but I wasn't going to fall for that one. No thank you. So as you can see, he's got his expansion whilst I got my expansion, so it's actually quite even at this point. I don't know he's got that expansion, but I do start to do some probes. Actually, I'm not sure. I guess the probe, I usually do probes like patrolling from here to here to here. I usually have a patrol route. That way I can sort of see on the minimap what's going on. So that's always a good tactic to try and do that. I mean, probes are rather cheap, so once the game gets to midpoint, you can definitely afford to do that. Scouting is so crucial in this game, so I suggest you do that. He's got his Hellion there. He's thinking, why isn't he expanded yet? That must be going through his mind. He thinks, this is a natural expansion you would get. You could get this one, but it's a bit more risky. So he's like, he hasn't got an expansion yet. It's a bit odd. How's he managing to afford all these units? Surely that must be crossing his mind at this point. Maybe he thought that Phoenixes are actually quite cheap, so I haven't got an expansion to afford it, but believe me, I wouldn't be able to get that many Phoenixes if I didn't have expansions with extra assimilators, as I'm about to do on this one as well. I don't actually really want the expansion so much for mineral fields. I want them for assimilators, because air, Protoss air, is very expensive with Thespian gas. You know, the minerals always cost more than the Thespian gas, but you get minerals like a lot more minerals than you do Thespian gas. So